My issue is with the gravel pits next to Big Hill Springs Provincial Park. We live right adjoining practically the prospective gravel pits, and so our water could be compromised as well. Hillcrest has an operating gravel pit. It's been operating for a number of years, monitoring and sending in reports, and that is not being questioned, or they're not being made to. So it does really make us wonder what's going to happen with the others. There are several in a row, like about 6, that are immediately next to the headwaters of the Big Hill Springs Provincial Park. The one that has been approved and is under appeal right now, both by the Preservation Society and myself and some others, it's 800 meters away from the headwaters of the springs. These springs feed the Big Hill Creek, which then empties into the Bow River. So we're talking pristine water. The number 4 or something spring in Canada. It's had this ranking. So it's a very important spring. The Rockyview just said, go ahead. And now it went to Alberta Environmental Protection, and they said they approved it. And there's been appeals. And the Preservation Society went for a stay, so as they wouldn't, but they allowed them to start anyway. There's 13 wetlands on that one piece of property, the one Mountain Ash property, and that's being allowed to just be wiped out in order to make a berm to protect from dust and that to our properties, not the park. But everything that goes before the board or before the county and then AEP gets approved. And we're talking water, dust, noise. The huge equipment that they use to grind up the gravel will be right next to Big Hill Springs Park. The prevailing west winds will carry it into the park. It's a wildlife corridor, and the noise will be horrendous as well. And yet AEP says it's okay, and they'll monitor, and if it contaminates the water, well, then they'll be asked to stop at that point. But water doesn't be decontaminated that easily. And the board has said that stopping Mountain Ash would be too sort of expensive or difficult for them or something. Like they shouldn't have started in the first place.
They dug a berm, and they said they couldn't allow a stay because they had already done the work. There was an ARP meeting, and then the county, the group was supposed to reach a consensus, and they only agreed on 3 points between the industry and them. But the industry does not believe in setbacks. We talked about being 800 meters from the headwater, 1 meter down. They don't believe in this. The group thought they should provide some money, increase the levy from 40 cents a ton of gravel, but give it to the groups. They don't want to support these groups at all. Also, there was no agreement at all on cumulative impacts. Interesting, as Rockyview County had done a biophysical attribute rating the biodiversity, the water, and so on in 2003. And this wasn't provided to the group or to the council.
We have some private pits by us as well as a municipal gravel pit. We are in Red Deer County, and in our situation, we've ended up having multiple public hearings. In 2020, they passed it and added the land beside us into the gravel overlay district. We were told the same as Dale and Adele that we had no appeal option. What ended up then happening about 2 weeks after the bylaw got overturned, they reapplied for the exact same bylaw. Then we dealt with that for another 2 years, came up under 3 different bylaws. And then in July of last year, the council ended up voting it down because we're immediately adjacent to the Red Deer River, and the land beside us has been designated as an environmentally significant area. And there was concerns, given its proximity to our water well, that we would lose our water well. In 2022, we discovered our water well was contaminated during this whole process. It was unknown what the cause was, but coincidentally, the municipal gravel pit uphill from us had been digging what appears to be in the groundwater. You can see it from satellite imagery. As they were expanding their operations and getting further in the water, we saw turbidity starting in our water, and then it became contaminated and not drinkable. The municipality filed for a Water Act application to mine in the groundwater. They've applied now to have end pit lakes. It was approved, even though we sent in a statement of concern. And we've now filed that with the Alberta Environmental Appeals Board. And we're actually going to mediation with that next week. We now have a very shallow water well. Because of economic reasons, that kind of our only option we had was to try this first. And so our water well is only 15 feet deep that we're using. It's actually supplying more water now than we even had from our other well. Our concerns is that they're going to be permitted to dig in the water table right uphill from us, that we're going to end up getting contamination and or lose our shallow water well. And we've been told that it won't impact it at all. And they've actually said that the water, even though they're almost directly straight south of us uphill, they say the water will be flowing to the east because that's the way the surface goes, not downhill towards the river towards us.
A little bit of history on that. Back in about 97, 98, a previous owner had applied to mine this same piece, and it was approved at the county level. We appealed it. County upheld the approval, but told them they had to measure our water table or to commit to staying above it. And the water table at that particular year came in at 2.7 meters below the surface. And they did a little digging, and before they hit gravel, they hit water. So they took their toys and went home, and then subsequently sold it to the current owners, who basically said, well, we know better. We can do it better. We'll do it just fine. This whole area is a very valuable aquifer that feeds downstream users, ourselves and downstream users. And Dale and her family have been in this contest of wits long before we came, and they've been kind of our guiding force. But there's a small group of us here who are currently have the decision made by Alberta Environment under appeal. Ironically, we had to have our statements of concern in August of 2020, and the morning after the election last spring, we got the notice that it had been approved. Can you spell disingenuous?
You were on the Red Deer River Watershed Council for years, correct?
Yeah, for about 20 years. Yep.
Yeah.
That's a watershed, WPAC. Back when we had something called Water for Life Strategy, they divided the province into these WPACs, Watershed Planning and Advisory Committees. And I thought we did some pretty good work there. We got a bunch of the WPACs on the South Sask Basin to send in a joint letter that extolled how wonderful floodplains are, and sent a lot of scientific information in for staying back from the river. The province has spent lots and lots of our money on stepping back from the river, and all kinds of different, I call them propaganda, where everybody should protect the water, and yet they won't protect the water themselves. We're all trying to work together here to get a voice that can be heard, because the way we are right now, we're just victims on the landscape, being picked off one by one. Our rights are being just trampled all over. Nobody wants to listen to us. And they have these ridiculous excuses, wordsmithing, water management, not river water management. They do everything in silo, not cumulative like it's supposed to be. We have laws, Cumulative Impact Assessment Act. For some reason, they're just ignored.
Yes, my name is Neil Connor, and this is Christina McCharles and my wife Joyce.
Hi, Neil will speak on behalf of me.
Yeah. We all live in the South McDougal Flats area, which is west of Sundre, and south of Highway 584 and north of the Red Deer River. Our area structure plan is pretty well within roughly 6 kilometer square area. There's well over 350 families in this area. There's West Fraser, a lumber manufacturer, a golf course, and some three-season homeowners. There's about 400 of them, and we're surrounded by eight gravel pits now. And within this area, each one of these pits has got what I would call a dark side to it, brought forward through the municipality. There's such a history of each individual pit. It's not enough time to describe for the time frame we have. Basically, we have 3 pits that are into the water table, and they're pushing frac water out of these 3 pits to the tune of probably we calculated with their temporary diversion licenses about 680,000 cubic meters of estimated water for this year. We're on the headwaters of the Red Deer River. The aquifers in this area, they flow bidirectional, multi-bidirectional between the Red Deer River and the Bearberry Creek, which lies to the north of us. Basically, it's an alluvial aquifer that is sensitive to anything that can probably penetrate the surface. And the people that we've talked to just don't understand the situation here. Our last go with the municipality was a hearing for the area structure plan, and we had several speakers. The foundation of the speeches were about water, which is actually above any other development condition, because this is what we're facing with. And to this date, the municipal or Mountain View County has passed the area structure plan without any studies.
Wildlife species,
Yeah,
any flood
yeah.
zone.
There's no studies whatsoever presented with this. They've actually null and void the previous area structure plan of any other noted study. So this has all gone through. Can we appeal this area structure plan hearing with the Mountain View? We have appealed West Can seal coating, and we lost with the land tribunal. We tried in another appeal at one particular time to get an appeal, and our counselor was supposed to have notification to the to her division people in the area, and pretty well we lost that because the findings for just to obtain that appeal was out by a couple of days. There was lots of intensive activity with professional hydrogeologists, and it was absolutely turned down. We couldn't even get an appeal on that. We've tried the other avenues with going towards the ombudsman, which is pretty well, I would say it's a waste of time. Our Mountain View County here is latent with code of conduct, ethics, and other infractions that it just continuously goes on and on. Counselor for Division 5, which is now a Reeve, owns a quarter section of gravel tested property, which I believe she had. It took us a couple of years to put forward a pecuniary interest action against her, so she had to recuse herself. So that meant that we have had no representation from our counselor for any gravel pit, for particularly West Can seal coating application up the road for the past 10 years. We fought that pit for 10 years, and then the county brought it in anyways. And that's kind of where, then we went to the appeal stage. So she attended it and voted on the area structure plan, as well as in the hearing for the area structure plan. She was chairing and voting as well through that hearing. And we believe that there was an infraction for sure with the Municipal Government Act, but so far we've counted about 3 to 4 different Municipal Government Act infringements from this municipality, but we just don't know quite how to deal with it.
Some of the things that we've tried with the municipality are complaints, appeals, We've addressed the AER and complaints. We've addressed them through the AEP. Once I discovered contamination in my water well, there's probably 8 different water wells now out here out of 350 different families that we know have gotten proper AHS testing done, toxicology and chemistry testing on their water wells, and they've come back, toxicology has come back contaminated. And that's so far the people that have actually done water well testing. There's 300 different families so far that, you know, everyone needs to get their water well tested. They could all have water well contamination and they're not even aware of it. So we're going to resurrect South McDougal Flats Area Protection Society, and we're also going to, from an accounting perspective, that's what I'm going to do, and I'm going to start down by the local mailboxes and start providing pamphlets to get people to get their water wells tested with a sense of urgency, because water wells are contaminated in this area. So try to get that going, I guess, sort of an awareness. So that's some of the things that's going to happen. Some other things that we've tried to address with the municipality is the cumulative effects of these 8 gravel pits in 6 kilometers, but they completely ignore these aspects. Things like traffic, dust, noise, they don't seem to look at these things. In addition to, you know, the aquifer protection, that they ignore it. Not our problem. You know, then we address it with AEP, we address it with AER, not our problem. They give us the roundabout, you know, well, oh yeah, we'll come out and have a look, we'll investigate, and their investigation is bullshit. Yeah, I think in 2012, Westpan, when they first started their application process, they did some traffic studies, but they did them in Sundre, not out in South McDougal Flats area. And then when they went ahead and 10, 12 years later, when they reapplied, when the residents had held them off for 12 years, Mountain View County allowed those 12-year-old studies to stand. Oh yeah, we've got some studies that were 12 years old. You know, they were done in Sundre in the wrong time of year. You know, the dust studies, the traffic studies, those will stand, and go ahead. You can appeal again, and we'll let you go through. So that's the kind of garbage that's been going on in this area. Our whole area structure plan completely screams industry. And anybody that's going to take a quarter section that wants to subdivide that quarter section, they actually say, we recommend you scrape the gravel off your quarter section for these subdivided and put in cisterns. Don't worry about a water well, put in cisterns, but scrape the gravel off first.
That was the takeaway I had when we left that hearing a couple weeks ago. The idea is extract the gravel, take the water for oil and gas, and then you've got land that you can just basically build something off of.
Who has the right to make which decisions, and if those decisions can be appealed, or if one can apply for judicial review like Jody did. And that's going to depend, that's going to be somewhat different if we're talking about the county's approval process and the county's bylaws and that sort of thing versus the provincial one. And so we're talking about 3 different counties tonight. And so one would have to actually review the bylaws and the actual area structure plans, etc. But generally speaking, there's 2 types of decisions at the municipal level. So some of those decisions would be made, they're political decisions, for example, to pass a bylaw. So you could compare the county council to the legislature of Alberta. They're passing a law, and they have broad discretion to do so. You could seek judicial review, but in generally they would have to make a pretty big error of law, like do something unconstitutional to have something like a bylaw, like an area structure plan, overturned. One thing would have to be researched in each county is that each county has subdivision and development boards. So I would think, although I can't say for sure, that any new gravel pit development would need a separate approval from a board. And so where these counties get mixed up a lot, sometimes the councilors or all of the council makes up the development board. Sometimes there's only some councilors on it. And then each county has to have its own development appeal board. And again, we have councilors on there. So they often don't know when to take off their councilor hat and put on their board hat. So councilors are elected to pass laws, but if they're also on a municipal appeal board or a municipal development board, those decisions have to be according to fact and law, not what you want or what you think your constituents might like. It's pretty common in counties for the local councilors not to understand any of this. Administrative law is the most complex area of law in our country, and it is by a country mile the most grossly misunderstood area of law. So then moving on, you need also a provincial statutory approval. So those, things like gravel mining are illegal unless you get an approval from an appropriate body to conduct an otherwise illegal activity. And so that, in this case, it would come from Alberta Environment and Protected Areas, it's now called. So you'd need an approval from what's called a director there. Those are appealable to the Environmental Appeal Board. But the Environmental Appeal Board is really just making a recommendation to Minister of Environment, who's Rebecca Schultz at the moment. So, and those decisions are appealable to the Court of King's Bench. So there's usually two avenues, judicial review that Jody talked about. That's sort of a constitutional right that these boards have to make decisions that are reasonably made or correctly made in some instances. And then there's also a if the statute that gives, for example, the Alberta Environment and Parks the power to approve gravel pits, if there's a clause in there for appeal to the Court of King's Bench or some other, or to the Court of Appeal of Alberta, that would be in the statute. And so there, again, sometimes they try to limit that to matters of jurisdiction, questions of jurisdiction, or question of law. So it's a pretty complicated matter to determine whether this decision is sound in the first place, whether one could seek appeal or judicial review, and it almost has to be done on a case-by-case basis. But it's very confusing, as Neil's already pointed to, right? And most people just don't know, what their options and avenues are for appeal, but they're always there. So it's usually a matter of getting a lawyer or someone who understands administrative law, and there's very few of those out there. That most of them are on industry side. Terms and conditions of approval are important. So it's one thing to intervene and try to get a project stopped. Those aren't that successful very much, but quite often you can get terms and conditions of approval, and then if they breach the terms and conditions, then hopefully you can reopen matters and get them shut down, or at least get them to abide by those terms and conditions. I know of a case I've read. I read it for other reasons because it deals with who can have status, but it was exactly for a gravel pit. It was in South Calgary. The name of the case is Court versus Environmental Appeal Board. So Court, and this is the family name. The surname of the person is Court. No, it's not the court. So it's called Court versus Environmental Appeal Board. But this woman did successfully appeal an approval of a gravel pit based on dust. She had asthma and she was close by, and the Environmental Appeal Board wouldn't properly hear her appeal, and she appealed it to the Court of King's Bench. And Justice McIntyre set out the tests for standing, I believe somewhere around paragraph 69 or so of that case. So he set out, I think, a 4-part test, could be a 5-part test. Haven't looked at that case for quite a few years, but But so this is how you would apply for standing to object to something like a gravel pit. The original, she wasn't granted standing in the original hearing, and so the court quashed the decision and canceled the gravel mine approval. So, and the issue was dust, and showed that she was directly and adversely affected, and that she had asthma, and so, but this would, in my view, this would directly pertain to, someone said, oh, we have a special environmentally protected area or something. So if there's dust going into that area, I would think one could probably get one of these things stopped. It's almost always a David and Goliath story. I think we all have to do a lot more to raise understanding, and I can assure you, your MLAs know pretty much zero about how to make an administrative decision or what these boards do, and they will try to interfere with these boards, which should never be allowed, because we're supposed to have this separation between the administrative branches and elected branches of government and the judicial branches of government. That's a basic tenet of democracy that frankly is being totally ignored in this province. So if you want to do it, they won't let you do it. But if industry wants to do it, no problem at all. Industry can lobby all the ministers they want, and those ministers will interfere with those boards in this province, left, right, and center. We're a total banana republic, lawless province. Let's be clear. And only those, it'll get worse. I assure you, the boards I deal with, once we got Miss Smith Premier, they went like that. They are being interfered with. If you think there's going to be investment from foreign people in this province in anything, including oil and gas, think again. We are a banana republic of the worst sort. And be careful who you vote for.
Ian Skinner and his friend Mike were supposed to be on tonight. I've been talking with Ian extensively, and apparently there are some maps, some studies done by various municipalities for water well monitoring, and he sent them to me. Now, ironically, there's the north part of Mountain View County has got multiple mapping done towards, I forget the name of the town, but we don't have anything done here. The other thing is that he suggested that we should look at a class action lawsuit.
It sounds
Thank
like
you.
most of our problems are very parallel when it comes to water and gravel pits and protection of our lands.
This is, you are at the forefront of land and water protection, and the issues that you're facing it's mind-boggling to hear the regulatory and political and legal complexities of, protecting your own drinking water and that of, the water that our economy relies on. I know that there's many people across the province that are unaware of your plight, but if they heard about it, would 100% want to support you. I just thank you for the work that you're doing, and me and Jenny are committed to growing this work and the awareness and the organizing behind this.
One thing to share with some of the people that are new here to that I haven't met before is, in my experience, taking some time to FOIP to try to get documents. If you're in your individual matters, you might get a lot of blacked out stuff, but you might be surprised what you might find that might assist you. But it all really ties back to, as Colin's talked to, trying to do the land protection and the water protection and some sort of rehabilitation of those areas before they're lost permanently. And the only way I can see us achieving this is somehow having a larger public understanding of what we're dealing with. Unfortunately, in my own personal circumstance, what we've had to deal with the gravel and the water has laid a contributing factor to me having a child in hospital. Those are those pieces that people don't realize how we have such broad impacts. If we don't make changes now, it might be too late to make changes. I look at what's happening with Neil's group up at the headwaters, Adele, Dale. Like, those are the areas that once they're lost, we can't go back and fix those. So many more people need to understand what's happening. And I think it's that we have a lot of laws and legislation that are already in place to try to protect these things.
Do you know about the Big Hill? I just saw that the AWA is hosting an event for you guys, because to me, that's a great way to kind of bring people into this the amazing space that the Big Hill Creek is.
Janelle, she belongs to that Save the Boat Route. I finally got a hold of her today, and she's taking a trip to Vancouver to meet some special people. And she's she wants to put her name on the chat line, and
Right.
it's got a wealth of information with contacts and whatnot in the background.
Amazing.
She also sent me a bulletin here that Sundre Community Center on May the 3rd between 9 and 2:30 is a Watershed Awareness Expo, and it's $10 for adults and stuff like
Yeah.
that. She just sent that to me.
Let's keep the conversation going. Have a good night.